Good afternoon, everyone. This is our second installment of the Own It podcast sponsored by the Dulye Leadership Experience. The Dulye Leadership Experience was created back in 2008 by Linda Dooley, focused on professional development. Started off exclusively for Syracuse University students, then transitioned to the Western Massachusetts and Berkshire County, and due to COVID 19, it was a catalyst for us to go online, and now we have a national presence. The theme of the podcast today is self reflection. My name is Marcus Coleman. I am a registered client service associate affiliated with Raymond James at a wealth management practice in Pittsfield, Mass. We have several people on this podcast today joining us from across the United States. Should be an awesome time. First person I want to go to introduce himself is Nate.
Hi, everyone. This is Nate Haddad, joining y'all from beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a student at Northeastern University getting a master's degree in computer science. And earlier this week, I started an internship at a small robotics startup called Nextroid, and I'll be a software engineer intern there, working on autonomous vehicles until December, and then finishing my degree up in May 2021. And I have a pretty long experience with the Dulye Leadership Experience. I joined as a photographer in 2013 at the DLE retreat and took pictures of the retreat, and returned as an attendee in 2017 in the Berkshires, where I'm from actually, and it's been great.
Thank you, Nate, for joining us on this podcast. Next person I want to go to is Lexi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi Arouk. I'm coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a upstate New York native, just moved here more than a few months ago now in December. I worked for Anheuser-Busch. I have since college graduation, graduated from SU. My title now is Management Systems Specialist. So essentially, I am the Performance and Portfolio Manager for our Commercial Innovation team. I started with the DLE in 2016 as a college senior, and returned back in 2017 and 2018 as a professional, member.
Lexi, thank you for joining us as well. Last but not least, Dana.
Hi, my name is Dana Altman. Thank you for having me. I am joining from Boston, Massachusetts. I am new to the DLE. I was introduced by a friend from college who lives in the Berkshires, and have been attending the Breakfast Club for the last 2 months, I would say. Time is flying by. I am a public health professional at a nonprofit organization in Boston, but I always introduce myself at DLE breakfast clubs or in this space as an author and entrepreneur. While I am passionate about public health, my real passion is the work that I'm doing, writing and starting my own organizations.
Dana, that is awesome. And thank you for always joining our breakfast clubs and culture chats. It's always great to have you on. Once again, my name is Marcus Coleman. I'm the moderator for today's Own It podcast. I'm a four-time DLE alum, started with the program back in 2016, and I'm a Syracuse grad like Lexi. So the theme, once again, of this podcast is self-reflection. So about around 2 months ago, majority of the United States was issued stay-at-home orders due to COVID-19. So a lot of us on this call, most of our extracurricular activities were stopped. You couldn't go to the gym, you couldn't go to restaurants and catch up with friends afterwards, among other things. So it provided a lot of time to self-reflect on oneself, whether it was personally or professionally. And that's the focus of this podcast once again. Due to COVID 19, what are some things that you realized about yourself what are some habits that you changed and that you think you're going to continue after COVID-19 is over? And are you in a happy place, or you feel like there are some opportunities for you to improve?
Yeah, Marcus, I'll
So
answer that. I wanna shoot it over to Darius so he can introduce himself really quickly, and then I'll give my answer.
awesome.
How you guys doing? Hope you guys are enjoying your afternoon. My name is Darius Kelly. I'm also a alum of Syracuse University. Um, I was roommates of Marcus years ago, and seems like yesterday, but it was coming on around 4 or 5 years ago now. But currently, I am working in human capital management. I work for a company called Heartland. We deal with HR, payroll, and helping small businesses grow through onboarding, doing background checks, and just saving customers money on the back end as far as HR and payroll goes. So that's what I'm doing right now. Working on a lot of other things personally on the back end as well. So again, my name is Darius, and just happy to be here with you guys.
Thank you, Darius.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start. I think that since COVID, I've always been a person who has like 10,000 things going on at a time, often more than I can handle. So I'm kind of pulled in 1,000 different directions and always working on planning. I love to travel, so I had to cancel 4 different trips over the last few months as a result of COVID. So for me, this was kind of some forced time that is also what I've learned is very important time to actually take a minute and figure out what I want to do, what I enjoy doing, and kind of what parts of my life are bringing me things that aren't so great. I started a blog, which is super out of my comfort zone. I'm a biology major. I work with engineers, and I've never been a words person. So for me, that was super out of my comfort zone, but the blog is really dedicated to understanding kind of who I am as a person. I think that a lot of us tend to just feel a little lost sometimes, whether it's, in our careers or in our personal lives. And it's a result of, I think, being overwhelmed by a lot of different outlets and our companies and social media and everything that kind of comes along with that. So I've really taken some time to do some exercises and deep dive and learn, what brings me joy and what doesn't bring me joy, and what am I doing to kind of avoid the things that I need to address in my life. So in light of the situation right now, what's going on in the world, I don't think otherwise I would have taken the time to educate myself and really put in the time to do the work to learn how I'm contributing. And I don't want to ever give thanks to COVID because it's brought a lot of destruction, but I do thank it for the time it's allowed myself to kind of look inward and address some things that I really needed to address.
Now, Lexi, you mentioned that you did some deep diving and realized some things that you enjoyed and some things that you didn't. What are some of the things that you enjoyed and some of the things that you realized you can eliminate from your life?
Yeah, so I've always been really big into fitness, and I've used it as an outlet to make my body feel good, but I think also make my ego feel good. And so I was in I had member 3 different gyms in St. Louis, and that's just unnecessary. So it's realizing, why, looking at the attention behind, why did I feel like I needed to do CrossFit and boxing and lifting and all of these things. And it really turned into, I learned that it was more about, thinking about the way my body looked rather than how my body felt. So, that was one step for me that I didn't love CrossFit. I didn't need to do it. I didn't enjoy it. So, cutting that out of my life, it didn't really bring me anything negative. And then also, I think some of the people that I have in my life, and knowing what they brought me and kind of some of the toxic behaviors, binge drinking and staying out super late and, not having healthy behaviors, and then not being willing to talk about how things make me feel and my emotions. And this idea that if you talk about things to people that you love, or if you cry about things, that takes away from your credibility as being kind of a strong person or someone who is able to kind of look adversity in the face and tackle it, and that's actually quite quite the opposite, right? It's someone who can understand that kind of emotional plasticity, and be able to go to those places with other people, and come back on the outside knowing that, yeah, I can go there and I can come back. So for me, that's been a big thing, and understanding who in my life contributes to those beliefs and who helps me kind of reinforce the idea that I can't deep dive into my emotions and kind of the experiences that I've had.
I mean, Lexi, that is awesome. I mean, that ability to really deep dive into your emotions. And also, I'm in personal finance, so I can relate to um, the drinking, a lot of networking events, a lot of meetings where you're drinking. And I realized once COVID hit, I was drinking way too much. If I told my doctor, he probably said I had a problem. Um, but I mean, from the past 2 months, I realized how my body has reacted to the difference in alcohol consumption per week, and it directly affected my waistline. Like you committed to a fitness routine. So other people on this podcast, have you made some changes to your fitness routine potentially?
Yeah, this is Nate here. And, before COVID, we'll go a little bit further back than that. So, like, in July of last year, I made like a serious change. Like, I stopped drinking for a whole month because I just need to like reset my relationship with alcohol. I'm glad that you brought that up, Lexi, because it's a serious thing. I mean, alcohol is a pretty serious drug, and we don't make it out to be as a society, and it's something I think we should take a deeper look at. But I started running more and was walking and running like 10 miles a day. Felt really good. I had a couple classes in the fall that were a little bit overwhelming, heavy calculus stuff, and I got exhausted and I just stopped running. And then spring comes around, I had all these goals, COVID happens, and I just use it as an excuse to stay inside. And with spring arriving, with um, the opportunity to go outside, I've done so, and I've started walking again. Because now I realize that I don't have these classes and I do have time in the evening to go out, um, with limited exposure to other people and do it for me, for my health, because I mean that's the most important thing, is taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. That's one of the virtues that I live by. You have to, healthy you is more important than trying to help everybody else. So.
Yeah, and Nate, I mean, I think that's big. I mean, you made a big point of taking care of yourself before you can take care of others. Another topic I want to bring up, and I had a lot of conversations with people, and they realized once COVID happened, they realized they haven't been nurturing their relationships with their friends and families like they should. Did anyone else have those feelings?
Yeah, I think so. This is Dana again. I think that it kind of went both ways for me. In some ways, I was talking to friends who I hadn't talked to in so long. Nate, I also went to Northeastern. Go Huskies. I'm a double Husky, actually. Got my master's and undergrad there. So I have so much love for the university. But yeah, like friends I haven't talked to since Northeastern. I had the opportunity it didn't matter how far away we were. So we were just scheduling like Zoom calls and playing, like using the whiteboard and getting like really familiar with breakout rooms, as like nerdy as it sounds as I'm speaking it now. So in that way, I've had the opportunity to rekindle some friendships. But on the other hand, I think I'm such an extrovert. I get my energy from other people and I'm recharged by spending time with other people. And there's something about like closing a screen and it's not the same. So I think I've had to reevaluate that for myself as well. Thinking about if just because I'm free all the time doesn't mean I can see everyone all the time. Like who actually makes me feel good, I guess, was something to learn during this time. Um, yeah, I will leave it at that. I don't know if anyone else can relate.
I definitely relate. I reached out to people I haven't talked to in like a couple of years, like maybe even this week, which is pretty funny because normally we don't do that. Like, like those, I feel like sometimes like those relationships, like they, die down and we kind of let them go. But then there was some of them where I was like, I wonder how that person's doing. I think they started medical school recently. I should go reach out to them to see how they're doing. And I've done that a few times. Just talking with another friend from college, like, hey, whatever happened to him? And I'll just at this point I'll just call because sometimes I still have their phone number and my phone's like, well, why is it in there? I'm saving this for a reason. I should call them and see how they're doing. And you know what? Every single time it's been wonderful. Every time I think that they're happy to hear from me. I'm certainly happy to talk to them. So I definitely see where you're coming from, Data.
Yeah, I agree as well. Just having the opportunity to just sit back and, like you said, you looking because I didn't have much time to sit there and just go through social media, go through your phone, go through your text and all that stuff. But having the opportunity just to reach out, even through there, just send a quick direct message. Hey, how you doing? Hope everything is well. Hope you're safe. Send a quick wellness check to people that you probably wouldn't have reached out to on a normal basis. It was pretty cool to see that and just rekindle those friendships from years ago, and also just having the ability to you know, grow the current relationships that you have as well. And reaching back to what Lexi said as far as, the alcohol and the dropping some of those things and being able to self-reflect on the fitness side of things and, being able to, I live in Arizona, so there's a lot of mountains, there's a lot of trails, a lot of things you can go out and see, which I wasn't taking advantage of. And I was able to, take hikes and I ended up buying a mountain bike, riding bikes up a mountain almost every day. Was definitely a good thing to be able to do. So, I try to enjoy this as much as possible and find new ways to stay busy and stay sane, to be honest. So.
I mean, I feel like we all touched on an important topic of nurturing those relationships. And for me, I'm one of those people that fell into using the excuse, hey man, I gotta run. I can't keep this call too long. So now you guys got the secret. I was avoiding you. But I mean, in COVID, not having all those extracurricular activities, I was able to talk to friends like Darius back from college 4 years ago and rekindle those relationships. I was able to spend time speaking to my mother more and not just through text messages. And I think that was a great thing for me and a lot of people on this call as well. And that's something personally I'm going to continue to do because it brought joy to my life that I didn't have prior to that. And then Darius mentioned something big too. And this is a trend that I realized by following other people's social media is the appreciation of nature. So, from my personal experience, I moved to Western Massachusetts from Philadelphia back in March, and I have never hiked before. And then, due to COVID, literally over the last 2.5 months, I've been on 20 different trails, and three of which were the Appalachian Trail. Um, so, other than Darius, did anyone else on this call um, have a different appreciation to nature due to these stay-at-home orders?
Yeah, I think there was I want to touch on kind of both things you said there, Marcus. The first is, I think we all have the habit of, you have a time limit for the conversations that you have with people that you love, even if they are well intentioned. And when we do that, I think we limit ourselves to just kind of superficial talk. Because if you have 15 minutes, you're not going to say, tell me about how your family is. I know your sister dropped out of college, and all these things, like heavy topics that really get down to how a person is. We say it all the time, how are you? But no, but how are you? And I think that, for me, it makes me super uncomfortable, right? I don't like talking on the phone because I don't know how to end the conversation. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there silent. But I learned the reason I'm sitting there silent is because I don't want to ask the hard questions. I don't want to have that conversation. And why don't I want to have that conversation? Because it's uncomfortable. So I think that forcing myself to have those conversations has allowed me to have deeper relationships, and maybe it's not as many as I had before, and that's fine. It goes back to, the important ones in your life that you nurture. And then, so to, I guess, bounce back on a later subject, in terms of nature, my boyfriend and I recently bought paddle boards, and I've taught my dog how to hang out on the paddleboard while we while we float around. And it's I grew up in the middle of the Finger Lakes region in New York State, so water and lakes and everything, it's in my DNA. And I don't know if you know anything about St. Louis, but it's smack dab in the middle of the country and not very much water. So I found my one respite. There's a lake about half an hour, dirty water, but it's water. And getting back out in the water has kind of helped me center myself. I think we all have that one thing that's like, I just got to shut my brain off and go do it. And I know that when I come out on the other side of doing that thing, then my head will be clearer and I'll be calmer and I won't be filled with anger or frustration or all of those kind of very cloudy, negative things that the world tends to put in our laps most of the time. So that's kind of been my thing recently.
Lexi, I'm so glad you brought that up, because as a mental health advocate, author, activist, all of those words behind mental health, that's so great that you're able to have those conversations. It is super uncomfortable, but I love that I'm hearing both you and Darius saying about like the wellness checks, like that you're checking up on friends and family members and asking those hard questions. Because I think now more than ever, we understand what it feels like to be isolated, even if you're quarantining with someone else. Like there's so much isolation that could be happening. I know for me, like I'm used to going to work every day. I have a very long commute, and now I just like walk from my living room to my bedroom, and like the commute's like 5 seconds, and just like really trying to be able, I guess, to be able to recognize like within myself, but also within my friends, like how are you actually doing? I think that's super, super important. And in terms of the nature aspect, all of my like exercise and my fitness routine comes through SoulCycle. And that is very indoor and also not happening right now. Which has been really difficult. So yeah, forced to go outside. I don't like the idea that I just said forced, but it's, I guess, in a good way. It's brought me outside, walking, like Nate had said, just exploring like different parts of Boston, which, you don't do on a stationary bike. So that's been good too.
So, you guys led me into another question when speaking about mental health, and you brought up isolation. Now, in the reverse, some people felt that due to the stay-at-home orders, their life was less stressful. They had less responsibilities, and they were able to find more enjoyment. Does anyone have those same feelings about that?
Not necessarily, but I think both are true. Like, I think that, yes, in some ways, like I brought up my commute, like I don't have to sit in traffic for like over an hour, but in other ways, it's like, it's definitely had me looking inward more often. And like in some ways, I'm grateful for that. I wrote my memoir during this time, which I'm really proud of. But in other ways, it has been uncomfortable to have less to do. I love having a lot of things to do, busy schedule, back to back. So yes, definitely less things that might be getting done. That does bring about some anxiety for someone who likes to be overcommitted. But for other people, I can understand why that would be less stressful. And I think both are true.
I was just going to say, I think that it's not so much that my stress has lessened. I think it's shifted, right? It's not like I don't have the typical stressors of my dog's been home alone for 10 hours, or there's traffic, or I have to sit in front of my computer in my office and pretend to do something for the last half hour of the day. But it's turned into, I'm stressed because I'm worried about my grandmother who's in a nursing home. It's switched because now I'm stressed because I'm alone all day, and I don't have anyone to talk to, and I haven't seen a human being in 3 days. And now I'm stressed because I want to make sure my boss thinks that I'm doing the amount of work she expects from me. And so I don't think that it's lessened. I think that in the ways that it's important to me, it might have lessened because it's caring for, it's making sure that my immediate responsibilities, my dog, my house, my health, everything, that's kind of elevated, but there's other things that have taken a hit as a result. And I do want to make sure too that I say that, I mean, all of us here are talking from a place where we didn't lose our jobs, where correct me if I'm wrong, where we're able to still work from home, where we wake up every day and don't worry about basic necessities as a result of COVID. So I just want to make sure that I highlight that and say, that our responses to this may not be representative of everyone. It's representative of kind of what our population here in the DLE represents. So I just wanted to throw that out there too.
Lexi, that is huge that you brought that up. Speaking personally, yes, I'm coming from a place of privilege in this situation that I didn't lose my job, and my line of work is considered to be as an essential worker. However, there's a lot of Americans that didn't have the same privilege, that have lost their job, and they're faced with a lot of stress of financially as well as dealing with a global pandemic at the same time. And while we're on that topic of financially, I know for me personally, I feel like I've become more fiscally responsible. I realized how much I was spending on alcohol. I realized how much I was spending on dinners, takeout. And I think personally, some of those habits of not drinking as much and not going to so many dinners are going to continue after the stay at home orders are lifted and businesses opening back up. Does anyone else on this call um, have reflections on their finances, any changes to habits due to COVID?
I'd say definitely. My habits of eating out was pretty insane. I would probably eat out about at least 2 times a day, and just because the way my job is set up is just I'm going business to business, so I would eat out every day. But now, I just started meal prepping, making my meals for the week, and if I want to change it up, I just cook here right at home. And I definitely slowed down with the eating out, and like you mentioned, going out almost every night as well, even if it's just for a casual drink, stuff like that. Definitely slowed that down. So the financial aspect has definitely showed me that, you can still enjoy life, entertain yourself through food, which I love to do, and through, just relaxing at home. And, so it definitely helped a lot financially, staying at home and cooking.
I guess as someone who works for an alcohol company, it's it's kind of a twofold, right? It's a double-edged sword. But I mean, my company promotes responsible drinking all the time. It's what we stand for. It's no one ever is going to tell you, yes, you should overconsume. But I think like when I think about it, drinking it's part of every happy hour, and for me, it's weird that alcohol is a taboo in companies. Sometimes I forget about that, and I'll show up in a Bud Light shirt, and people are like, "What are you doing?" Because for me, it's my professional dress, right? So it's hard for me sometimes to remind myself of that. But drinking and happy hours and everything, it was part of everything we did when we were in office, and so the shift has kind of made me, think about. Not really my relationship with alcohol, but the way alcohol caused me to act in my relationships with other people. And I think beer is important and alcohol is important because it does bring people together. It allows us to have those difficult conversations, right, that we talked about. It's allowing ourselves to open up and be more willing to enter into vulnerability. But at the same time, you look at, and Marcus, you're talking about financials, and it's like, they get you, they don't the drink prices on the menu, right? Most times. So you go to the bar and you order something and all of a sudden it's $11 and it's $11 for a shot with some soda in it. And it's funny sometimes, you take a step back and it's times like this and it's like, what was I doing all the time? And all of a sudden you got like a $50 bar tab and you're doing that 3 nights a week and then all of a sudden that's the car payment. So it's interesting when you take a step back and frame it that way and look at it that way.
Nate, do you have? Go ahead.
Yeah. So as a college student, money's always been very, very limited. And I was in the process of trying to find a job when, the pandemic, started in March. And I was at like final stages of one place, a technical position at an education technology company in Boston. I was really excited about this position, and I needed the money, or else, like you run out of money, you don't have enough money to pay rent. Like I can't, I have no idea what I would do. Um, try to take out more loans. But yeah, it was on my mind. So that was like the biggest stress is I needed to find a job that started in May or June or as soon as possible. And I was at the final interview and I got an email that said that we're freezing all hiring. We're freezing all hiring for any positions in the entire company. And I started panicking because then I got an email a couple of days later from another prospect for an internship, frozen, canceled. There was like 2 more that were like that as well. And I mean, I didn't really know what to do. And, thank God that I was able to secure something. But that there's so many people that weren't able to. And I can't imagine the amount of stress that this pandemic has brought upon them on top of the health scare that everyone is worried about. I just can't imagine it because I felt just a little bit of that pressure, and I probably would have be able to get a private loan, but or sell my car or something. But I can't imagine for somebody else right now. And we were talking before about reaching out to people and really asking how they are. And I think that those are the people that really could use somebody to talk to, whether it's like financial advice or just somebody to speak about their stresses too. So it's went in a pretty serious direction, but I think it's important to bring it up that as a college student, finances are always rough, but lucky for me, it worked out. But I know that there's other people out there, was it like 20, 30 million Americans that are not sure what they're going to do in 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and I also feel for people who are working from home and managing kids. Like I know personally, like I don't have any children that I need to homeschool and balance my job, or maybe they're not working and they're just home all day. I think that would be really hard. I can't even imagine. So I give them a lot of credit too.
Yeah, that's got to be pretty wild. I was a little background, and I'll back up a little bit. I forgot to mention this in the intro, that I'm also a Syracuse University alumni. I started off in biology, and then I changed majors like in my junior year, so a little bit late in the game, over to English, and then I taught in Boston Public Schools through the AmeriCorps program. And teaching is an incredibly hard job. Like that is so challenging and so difficult. I can't imagine that also being a parent and doing the parenting and then also trying to do teaching while also trying to figure out your job. Like, God bless parents. Like, wow, that's insane.
And yeah, Dana, you brought up a great point, and it's not represented on this call. None of us have kids, but I couldn't imagine either, working from home and having two little ones or three little ones around you, saying, "Mommy, Daddy, Mom." It's truly amazing because I do have colleagues that have kids, and their ability to execute on a high level while still working at home is truly amazing. And my mom was a teacher. So Nate, you are 100%. My mom said being a teacher, then coming home to me was probably the hardest thing she did in her life. But even though we don't have teachers on this call, I know we all share this. We understand all the great work that they're doing. Just over 1 week, they had to pivot to taking their curriculums all online and teaching third to sixth graders math, um, which is a challenge just in person. So, I mean, I really respect all our teachers in America right now for truly still staying focused to educating the youth as much as they can. Um, while speaking on education, um, I'm in personal finance, and in the future, I do want to get my master's, but it's not the right time for me. Um, have anyone has anyone on this call considered going back to school, or are they in the process of applying to con- get additional education or a designation?
I would love to. I just I'm in the process of figuring out what I want to be when I grow up, so I haven't quite made it to figuring out what I want to go for. I mean, I'm sure anyone who went to SU knows that I came out with a hefty student loan debt, so that's another kind of thing. It's not like I couldn't get another loan, but I think the thought of getting another loan makes my stomach want to flip over. So I think I would love to. The idea is super enticing. I think right now I'm trying to find other ways to keep learning so that I feel like I'm filling that part of myself without formally going back to school. Because right now it's just not really an option. It's an option, but it's not a smart one financially for me.
That's definitely something that I've always loved is online learning. Like whether it's LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, there's a bunch of like technical websites that you can use to like level up technical skills. Udemy, Udacity. These websites are great, and they offer courses that'll teach you a variety of different skills. And sometimes the courses are free or they're at a reduced price. I get LinkedIn Learning through school right now, and it's a great resource, especially computer science. It's a lot of self-learning. Like you just are teaching yourself stuff all the time, or reinforcing something that somebody's already taught you that you forgot like a month ago or a few months ago or something. But I did during this quarantine. I did look into PhD programs for computer science, and then I got a little bit scared. And I got a little bit scared because I'm 30 years old and I'm afraid to go and sit for another 5 years at a university when I could be making money and buying a house and these types of things. Why would I want to get a PhD? Because I'm really interested in artificial intelligence and something called deep learning, which is like a type of machine learning that uses deep neural networks. And this stuff is awesome. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I'm reading papers all the time and diving into all sorts of different types of research and applications of this stuff. But a lot of like the higher caliber positions, the new work that's really exciting to me requires a PhD, or it's extremely difficult to get a position without a PhD. So while it's something that I'm not 100% committed to, I can't rule it out because I love it. I would really like to gain some more experience and then make a decision. And I guess I got time right now. So something that I'm mulling over.
I think an important piece too that I just want to call out is like when you think about going back to school, and this came up in the DLE my second year when we were talking about MBAs were like really big that year or something. Like everyone wanted to go back and get an MBA, and it was asking yourself, why do you want to go back to school? Is it because you need an accreditation for your degree? Is it because because you aren't feeling like you're getting growth in your current position, or is it because you want to learn about something that you don't know about? And if it's the latter, there's books, right? All these professors that are teaching colleges, they write books too, and you can, not that it's going to substitute for an in-person learning, but if it really is that you need an accreditation, then college awesome is probably a great idea. But to your option, to your point, if it's a specific subject, like there's a way to learn about things that doesn't require going back and putting yourself in debt and doing things just because you'll get like the recognition of society along with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like there are so many resources in the world that like we don't think about in terms of furthering our education. I mean, I graduated with my master's in 2018. I can't imagine going back to school. I promised my parents that I wouldn't after my master's. So I don't know what that would look like for me, but in terms of being an author now and like wanting to learn more about like writing and the publishing process, like there are books, there are websites, and even like through LinkedIn, people are willing to help you. People love to talk about themselves, and especially when, or a topic that they're really passionate about, or both. So there are a lot of opportunities that are outside of a traditional classroom. I think that's important to note as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't say I consider going back to school too much, but I have been working on different licenses, real estate, things like that, just to get licensed and just find different ways to create new revenue that you would need to get some type of education on and be certified in as well. So, yeah.
And Dana, you brought up a great point, and on sometimes people go back to school or searching for accreditations to get society's recognition. And I think that's something I realized. That's why I wanted an MBA so bad. My background is I played football at Syracuse, and Darius did as well. We're extremely competitive, and I thought by getting an MBA behind my name, that makes me more credible. But the true thing, like you guys mentioned, is the search for knowledge. There's books out there that the professors that you're going to pay $60,000 a year for has already has already made. You can study those books, attain that knowledge, and then apply it in the real world to make yourself money and not go into debt. And personally, that's something I realized around furthering education for myself. Now, while we're on education and furthering yourself, Lexi made a joke about she's still trying to figure out what she wants to be when she grows up. So my question for the group is: do you feel like you're on track for your professional goals? And if not, what have you done um, to make some changes?
I guess I can start and just kind of give some context to my comment. So, just as some background, I was pre-med in college. Pretty sure from the time I was like 14 on, I was going to be a doctor, orthopedic trauma surgeon at that. But I took the MCAS. I did all the things that I should have done, and I got to the finish line, and I had my application done for medical school, and I realized I didn't want to do it. Like, I just didn't want to. And you don't want to be in school for another 8 years. You probably shouldn't be, right? And so now, like, I think there was just always this narrative. I'm a first generation college student, so it's just this narrative that you grow up, you go to a good college, you get a good job, you make a lot of money, you climb up the ladder, and it's just a dream. And I think my parents my dad was a factory worker, my mom was a waitress for most of my life, and for them that was their dream for me, right? It was, I want you to do well, I want you to do better than me, and their idea of my success was to do all of these things to get to a point where essentially I am now. I'm at a pretty decent level for a really big company, and most people would probably kill to have my job, and that's why I feel guilty saying this, but it's like I did all of these things. I have a good job, I have a good salary, I have a house, I have a dog, I have a car, all these things, and I'm not happy, right? So it's like I have to kind of do some work and figure out, what do I want to do? Because I think I was just on autopilot, and you reach the end of your scheduled programming, and no one tells you what to do next. And it's like, well, I don't know. I never asked myself those questions. I never thought about it. I just did all the things I thought I was supposed to do, and now there's no prescribed next step. And I think that's a problem for a lot of people in our generation, or maybe even before us, and they get to a point and they think, well, this is what I should have done, and now it's too late to back out. And they just kind of have a career that's complacent. It's good, right? It's not fulfilling. It pays all the bills. It does all the things it needs to do, but does it set me on fire? No. And so that's kind of the angle that I'm trying to take now, and taking those next steps and just figuring it out.
For me, I feel like I really wanted to go into the counseling/social work field. I've always been really passionate about mental health, based on my own experiences, living through difficult times, and also just general interest. And I remember when I had my dream job essentially, and was still doing all of these different, creating all these different organizations, doing like all this work that for fun, like setting up different community events, and hearing that like public health, there was actually a name for the work that I was doing for fun, and that I could actually get a degree in it and make money, which is really cool. So I feel like, Lexi, everything you said is like resonating so much, and I think that I think I'm just like a year ahead, I guess, in my journey so far, because I was able to do that, and I am definitely in a job that I really love. But at the same time, my goal is to work for myself. I want to be a speaker, and I use my books as a platform to share my story, to share the things that I'm passionate about. So I think that's the next step for me. But financially, it's not going to happen anytime soon. But that's where I'm looking ahead.
I graduated in 2013 from Syracuse University with a degree in English. And what do you do with an English degree? Well, I mean, I always tell myself it's a really versatile degree, but teaching. So I wanted to teach. So I ended up, working for this AmeriCorps program that I mentioned in Boston. I worked for two of them actually, City Year and Playworks. Great programs, and it exposed me to some of the most wonderful parts about teaching, but also some of the most challenging and difficult aspects of that career. And I realized that it wasn't for me. So realizing that was tough, because afterwards, like, what do? I kind of got to like start over. So my journey to start over brought me back to the Berkshires, where I grew up. And I ended up working at a nonprofit there, and I was exposed to some AI stuff. And with the English degree, you can't really do much with AI. So I started using online resources to learn more about this stuff, and realized I couldn't do anything without a degree, or didn't want to, or I couldn't force myself to read the textbooks you were talking about earlier, Marcus. And that's how I ended up in this degree program that I'm at right now, this Master of Science in Computer Science. And I've just been trucking along, trying, or doing as much as I can, learning as much as I can, so that I can get that dream job, which is working in AI as like a machine learning engineer or artificial intelligence researcher, one of those titles, because it's really exciting to me, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. And I was so happy to land this internship which is a great step in that direction, working with autonomous vehicles and computer vision, which is that sector of artificial intelligence that I'm most interested in. So I'm very blessed to have received this opportunity, and I'm just going to keep pushing. That perseverance. None of this stuff came easy for me, and I had to learn multivariable calculus and all this other stuff that I avoided because I was like, oh, I'm never going to use that. I'm never going to be an engineer. I'm not good at math. I'll just whatever. Let somebody else do that. I'll be the guy that's in charge. And you know what? I'm more interested in this stuff now. And it just took me like 10 years to realize it, which is ridiculous. But I'm happy where I'm at right now. I'm going to keep working towards that goal. I think that, Dana, that you just mentioned, and Lexi, like, it's got to fulfill you. It's got to, like, that. You got to be passionate about what you do, or have that side thing that fulfills it for you, and just keep working at the position or career direction that you're at right now. Just make sure that you like cover that what matters most to you.
And Nate, I give it to you. You're doing all those numbers. Even though I'm in finance, I am a addition and subtraction guy. That's why I'm on the personal finance side and not a quantitative analyst. Um, but I mean, to talk on, given my personal experience on, do I feel like I'm on track for my professional career? And I mean, I think so. I share a story that a lot of athletes share. Um, my whole identity, my entire life was football. So I was football in school, but I still was a football player. And once I graduated from Syracuse, um, had to decide who am I going to be now. And that was the big part of my life, the DLE, through the leadership experience. It helped me identify a new identity and where did I want to go. And my goal is to be a financial advisor to professional athletes and entertainers. But something I realized during these stay-at-home orders is I was so focused on the destination that I wasn't enjoying the process and the progress from hard work. Um, Football, it took me many years to get the skills I needed for football, and I kind of assumed that becoming a financial advisor, professional athlete was going to happen overnight. But now I realize just enjoy the process, enjoy all the progress from your hard work, and eventually I will get there. So I have one last question from the group before we close this out. What is one thing that you realized about yourself that you weren't that aware of prior to COVID-19? And I know that's a deep and tough question, but whoever wants to take on the question first, I applaud you.
I
Go ahead
will.
and take it.
Oh, Darius, you got it. Go for it.
Okay. I'd say the one thing that I noticed about myself now that I didn't before is just my ability to be able to just try so many new things, to come out of that shell of being stuck on, well, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the way you were shown the way how to do this growing up. This is what this is how it's supposed to be. You're gonna go do this. You're gonna work a 9 to 5. You're gonna do this, that. You're gonna wake up every day and do the same routine. And it made me realize that you don't have to just do that. There's things you can own businesses. You can, like I'm doing now, working on a book. You can do your own type of business outside of that. And I didn't really sit down and really think about those things because I was working a typical 9 to 5 for so long. And now that I'm out of that typical 9 to 5 type of lifestyle, it's just shown me that the world is wide open and you can literally do anything, not just that you want to do, but you can do anything that's out there. Because like I said, I didn't always want to write a book. I didn't always want to do those things, but I know that I can. I know those things are available, and I have the ability to do it. just with a little bit of push and a little bit of guidance, just to be able to be creative and do those things out there. So that's the one thing that I've been able to pull out of myself through this time. So.
That was a great answer. I'm glad you went first. And I look forward to hearing more about your book. That's super cool. So I guess mine is a little bit more personal. I think, as I had mentioned earlier, just being an extrovert and feeling like more comfortable being around other people all the time, like gaining some independence during this time has been really helpful. I live in an apartment with a roommate, and my roommate was going to school in Boston, and she moved back with her family. So I was kind of like forced to live by myself, which I actually love, and I would have had no idea if it wasn't through this process. So I think just recognizing that, not to doubt myself as much, and also realize that there's a lot of empowering things that come from independence sometimes, even if it's kind of forced upon you.
Yeah, so kind of to parallel you a little bit, Dana, I was alone with my thoughts for really the first time. I live alone. I'm not really similar in the sense of like being physically alone, but alone with my thoughts in the sense of like I didn't have anything to occupy me. I couldn't plan my next trip. I couldn't take anything to distract myself from who I was. And I think when you sit alone with yourself and you pay attention to what's actually running through your mind when you don't have anything to distract you, I realized that I kind of lost myself a little bit. I don't know if it was through college or the professional world, but I learned how to speak in a way that would not erupt any emotion from anyone around me, kind of silencing I say this in my blog, but silencing the wild parts of me that made other people uncomfortable. And I've done a lot of work. I've read Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and I swear to God, this is my Bible. I want every woman who I've ever known to read that book, because it just speaks so eloquently about what it's like to feel like you need to shut yourself up sometimes and not be too much of this or too much of that. And my whole life I've been too much of a lot of things, and people have told me that. So I think through my professional career, my first job, I managed a union workforce of like predominantly older white men that worked for me. And so me coming in as a 22-year-old female was intimidating for them. I was underestimated. It was just assumed that I didn't know what I was talking about. So I spoke very delicately to make sure that I didn't portray myself as someone who knew what she was talking about, or didn't portray myself as someone who came on too strong. And the reality of the situation is I should have reacted very differently to a lot of things that happened to me in those first couple of years. And I think that shutting myself up made a pattern of me shutting myself up. And I lost a lot of the parts of me that a lot of people loved, and I think honored who I am and where I came from. And it's kind of a little too deep, but I lost my dad not even a couple of years ago, last March, and I think that made me realize when you don't have your sounding board who kind of like validates everything that you think about yourself and say about yourself and reminds you who you are all the time, it's really easy to stray away from yourself and gravitate towards the person that other people want you to be. So I think in a shorter answer your question, Marcus, I'm sorry I kind of went off the deep end here, but I realized that I lost myself a little bit, and I have to come back to myself, and I'm not always going to say things that other people agree with, and that's just fine.
I think that was a great answer, and it's touched on so many of the different things that we've talked about in this conversation. And, just to follow it up, I feel very similar about a lot of the things that you mentioned, Lexi, and also other stuff that we've mentioned throughout this conversation, especially when looking back at like relationships and the relationships that I have with others. And in the past, like I've really just kind of lived a life where it's like, well, if they don't like me, they don't like me. And, I still kind of live that way. But I've also been like, do I want to act like that? Do I want to, maybe I'm pushing people away, and I need to, take a deeper look into that. So that's why I've been, starting to reach out to people again that I haven't talked to in a while, because like these are great people. And for one reason or another, we've lost touch. And that's one of the things that I think has been really great that's come out of this pandemic and the whole stay-at-home order, quarantine stuff, is that I've been able to reconnect and rekindle relationships with people that I didn't think I'd ever talk to again for one reason or another, and to bury the hatchet with somebody that I had a bad time with the last time we spoke, because our humanity is the most important thing, and not these like I guess our social interaction with humanity, but the human to human contact is something that is so precious. And even though we're not in person, just having a phone or Zoom or GoToMeeting is just an incredible opportunity to reconnect with someone, and it's a great way to reflect on um, yourself and your relationships with others.
And Nate, thank you for that thoughtful response, as well as Lexi, Darius, and Dana. Once again, I want to thank you guys for taking your time out of your day to help build the second Own It podcast. Unbelievable topic. You guys were extremely vulnerable, shared personal stories, and it truly made a great product today.
Thank you for joining us for this installment of the DLE Own It podcast. The Dulye Leadership Experience is committed to providing vibrant learning and networking opportunities for career ownership and personal resilience. For details about our ownership workshops, breakfast club, and culture chat, go to www.dle.dulye.com/programs and gain valuable tips and connections for your professional and personal success from our DLE newsletter, The Hub. For your complimentary subscription, go to www.dle.dulye.com/hub.